Donc, premièrement, encore une fois, bonjour à tous. Merci d'être venus à ce webinaire aujourd'hui. C'est notre second webinaire. Donc, on avait fait un webinaire il y a quelques semaines de cela. Et après, justement, on a eu quelques demandes quelques questions concernant qu'est-ce qu'on peut s'attendre à voir du real estate. C'était pas mal du côté des investisseurs, surtout qu'on avait eu ces questions-là. Donc, on s'est dit, mais pourquoi ne pas faire un second webinaire? Donc, le webinaire, c'est comme le webinaire précédent. C'est présenté par l'équipe de Prime Pillar Valuation Services et aussi BI Instruments qui est en train de nous aider du côté hosting et tout. Donc, le webinaire, ça va être une conversation principalement en deux speakers. La conversation sera informelle et en termes de langue choisie et tout, ce sera le français et l'anglais. Ce sera un mix un peu des deux, juste pour, je pense, rendre la conversation un peu plus intéressante et un peu plus engaging aussi d'une certaine façon. Comment ça va se passer? C'est premièrement, il y aura cette conversation entre nous, mais pour les questions à la fin, on va prendre que les questions à la fin, ok? Donc là, pour le moment, vous n'allez pas pouvoir poser de questions ou quoi que ce soit. Vous pouvez nous envoyer des messages à travers le chat et tout. Et après, peut-être Christian va nous laisser savoir un peu quelles sont les questions qu'on a eues. Et si vous voulez poser des questions pendant le webinaire, ce sera à la fin, pendant les 10 dernières minutes du webinaire, où justement, vous pouvez utiliser l'option Raise Hand de Zoom, où on va vous transmettre la parole et vous allez pouvoir justement poser des questions ou bien peut-être raise certain points that you might want. Donc, en termes des participants que nous avons aujourd'hui, en termes de speakers, nous avons premièrement Kentish. Kentish, c'est le CEO et founder du groupe Prime Pillar. Donc, Kentish est un Chartered Valuation Surveyor, fellow de la Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, et aussi un Chartered Building Engineer et membre de la Chartered Association of Building Engineers. Le second speaker sera moi-même, donc je suis Cédric Fournier, le Chief Operating Officer du groupe Prime Pillar. Et pareillement, je suis un Chartered Valuer et Chartered Building Engineer. Concernant notre host, comme je vous ai dit, le host c'est BI Instruments et BI Instruments est représenté par Christian Diljo aujourd'hui, le Managing Director de la compagnie. Donc, nous allons toucher un peu sur 4 points principalement. Donc, le mythe du real estate en termes de plusieurs pensées qu'on a sur le real estate à Maurice, la performance de ce qu'on appelle les real estate investments. Donc, quand vous achetez des biens immobiliers et tout, qu'est-ce qu'on peut s'attendre à voir côté performance et comment on mesure aussi la performance. Nous allons ensuite voir l'infrastructure, comment l'infrastructure et le real estate sont reliés et comment c'est une forme d'investissement et qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire à Maurice concernant infrastructure. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qu'on investit dedans pour le moment? Et finalement, nous allons voir les primary locations for real estate. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a un changement en termes de location? Ça, je pense que c'est une question qu'on avait beaucoup eue avec les investisseurs. C'est est-ce qu'il y aura des changements? Est-ce qu'ils vont bouger à d'autres endroits? Donc, ça, c'est aussi un point qu'on va soulever pendant le webinaire. Donc, the myth of real estate. So when we talk about the myth of real estate for this specific section, we are only talking for our local market, so for Mauritius, and what we have seen through our experience of what is believed by the population to be true and how they actually use those factors to make decisions when it comes to real estate purchases or sales. So Kentish, the first myth that we found was that land is scarce. And definitely land is scarce because we do have a limited supply when it comes to land, but we have also seen that sometimes it is exaggerated when we talk about scarcity, and it does impact a lot on decisions that are taken when it comes to purchase and acquisitions of land. Can you give us a brief understanding of the degree of scarcity in Mauritius and how it actually impacts on sales?
Thank you, Cedric. Thank you, Christian from BI Instrument for making this event happening today. Good afternoon to you all attending. So a very good question. So to start with, we should not forget that we are actually in an exceptional scenario, and the myth we will be talking about is very highly debatable. That's why we call it a myth. So when we talk about the scarcity of land, that land is scarce, we should not forget that this is being propagated by real estate agents. So they come to you, they will tell you that, see, I have a new project coming in. So you got to buy, because you'll never ever get this opportunity again in your life. So you think that because there is scarcity, and then you buy, which is not necessarily true. I will be taking examples of few regions and locations. It's not because I fancy those locations that I'm taking it as example, but I'm just taking it for the sake of this argumentation we're having now. First of all, when we buy, we must understand the need of the acquisition. So is it an acquisition that we are making to build a house? Is it an acquisition that we making because we want to erect a commercial building? Or is it that we want just to buy a bare land for mere speculation? We should not forget that there is a limited amount of land in the world. This, coupled with the fact that the population of the world is increasing every day, gives credence to the conclusion that land prices of the world will continue to rise perpetually, since there will be always be a shortage of land. For me, this is absolutely not true. I will take the example now of, let's say, flic en flac. So you have your agent who comes to you and tells you, listen, Cedric, I got a plot of land in a new Morcellement, and the price is 35,000 rupees per toise, and please buy it because land is scarce. And then you rush and you make a buy without investigating about the environment per se. So what happened is that if you take that specific example of flic en flac, we should not forget that there has been a development around the area, starting from Cascabel going to flic en flac and all the way to Black River. So you have options. Either you buy in new Morcellement that has been done recently by Medine, or you buy in old Morcellement that has been there over the years. So you got choices. So I do not agree with this myth that land is scarce. And specifically talking about the post-COVID effect, you will know that there would be a lot of possibilities of people coming to you to give you what I would call opportunities. And this is the time to seize these opportunities because it's a buyer's market. Now, when I take the example of a commercial property, whether the land is scarce for commercial property, I would say yes and no. Because if you drive all the way from, let's say, the runabout of Cascabel and drive down to flic en flac, plenty of empty spaces that could eventually be converted. But we should not forget that converting a property for a different use, rather than the present use it is being used now, you need to go for all the permits and applications and whatnot. And you should not forget that when we talk about the main roads, to be able to convert a property from a specific use to that of a commercial, you need to go for the conversion probably. You would need to get your BLUP. You would need to apply to the RDA to make a traffic impact assessment, because you can't just allow people to bring their vehicles in and go out. This might create hazards on the road. So it could be that for commercial properties, there might be scarcity, but depending on location. So what I would say is that this myth of scarcity for land does not stand at all. Furthermore, a look at the numbers will explain that this is not the case for just one simple reason. It is true that there is a limited amount of land in the world, but technological development is making it possible to make more efficient use of this land. Studies have shown and concluded that population of the world were to rise, but we have reached, I think, a peak. So if you have a peak in terms of growth, so how much can you buy? So the simple basic conclusion I would say on that specific myth, it's that it's something that is the art of selling, the art of convincing your buyers that, you know, come and buy this land because you won't find this anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you, Kentish. I totally join you on that. I think scarcity is exaggerated in Mauritius. It's exaggerated to sell at higher prices. So that's definitely something that we can see happening in Mauritius. But I totally join you on that. And you talk about innovation and how buildings are changing with skyscrapers and apartments, people becoming more and more willing to buy apartments now. Maybe scarcity is not that much. It's not what they are telling us it is actually. So the second point that I would like to raise is the second myth that we are talking about is the past performance, which is most of the time used to determine future performance of a property. Can we truly use past performance to measure future performance, Kentish, knowing that we are at a stage where COVID has changed everything we know today? Can we still use, or was it good to use it before? And can we still use past performance to measure the future performance of real estate?
My honest, humble opinion is no. Because there are two elements that you normally use as property professionals to talk about property performances. One is in terms of the rental yield. You invest in a property because you want to get something in return. What would be your rental, etc. And the second would be the capital appreciation based on when you purchase and when you want to exit, how much you would receive from it. So it's a matter of valuation and speculation. We should not forget that post-COVID-19, there would be few things that we would have to pay attention to. One is the occupancy rate. Let's take the example of a commercial property where we are more concerned about yields, we are more concerned about return on the investment, we are more concerned about tenants paying the rental, etc. The occupancy rate would play a role, an important role. The rate of tenant turnover would play an important role. And I believe there would be a high rate of tenant turnover. I'll explain why. In our previous webinar, we did mention something with regards to the tenants fighting hard to find businesses. Tenants working hard because there is less of disposable income, and probably their individual turnovers in those shops, malls, etc. might fall. So what will happen is that, let's put it this way, that you are the owner of a commercial complex. You will have only one option, not two options. That you deal with your tenant, you try to convince them that now I'm going to reduce my rental, you please stay and operate. So by reducing that rental for you to keep on operating in that place, you would decrease the rental yield of the landlord. So definitely the past performance that has given in terms of figures, how much they have been yielding, how much they have been paying as dividend if you're investing in a property 10%, you would definitely not be able to use past performance as a benchmark to determine what will be the future performance of your property. So I think it is very important now to look at the new tendency of working from home. We had a discussion on that, and the main question that is being asked by many of our clients, by many of us, is that, is it something that is workable in the long term? And I would say yes. I will take the example of our accountant who's working from home and using a team viewer to know what is happening in the office. So why should he move from his house to come to the office where he can do the same job, probably with the same level of efficiency, and stay at home? So there would be definitely a drop down in demand for office spaces, or there would be big offices that would scale down the operations in terms of available spaces. But we should not forget one thing. When we talk about that concept of people working from home, there is one thing which is happening. People are trying to improve their environment at home to work. I would be very happy if, for example, I sit in a place and I can talk to you the way we're doing now, but at the back there are pictures of my grandfather, pictures of my grandmother, which is not corporate. So there are people now, I would be happy to have them behind my back, but we need to have professional setups, and this is the tendency. So if this tendency goes on, so what will happen is that the performance of properties which were being rented out would definitely fall. So I don't think at this point in time, mainly speaking post-COVID-19, that we should be using past performances to predict future performance.
Yes, I'm totally agreeable with you on that, Kentish. I think we speak a lot about the new normal, that everything is changing, the way we live will change. So how can we actually still use past performance when we are living COVID, which is something that has never happened really before? So the third myth that we have, and I think if I can use an example, is it's very linked to scarcity. Is that we will always find clients that will come to us and say, okay, I want to buy this property, and well, land is scarce. I need to buy it now, otherwise I won't have an opportunity like this again. And there's something that people don't necessarily understand when it comes to real estate is the time that it actually takes for real estate to change hands. The times actually take for you to find the right property, because properties are not listed at the same time all the time. It will happen in various batch, in various sessions. So we have to wait for those different time periods to buy property. So Kentish, the third myth is real estate investment can change hands easily. People do believe that real estate can change hands like in 2 months, 3 months. Is that true? Is that true to say that you can buy, sell real estate just like that in the space of 2 months?
Concrete example. If I put the Air Mauritius building, I'm not criticizing, it's just an observation as I do regularly. If I put that building on the market this afternoon, would you think tomorrow morning someone will go and grab it? This is not the case. Real estate investment has proved over the years that it is the less volatile type of investment, because the rate of appreciation is much more than if you invest in shares on the stock exchange, etc. And you have seen what has happened over the past 3-4 months across the globe. Indices, share prices has been continuously falling with a lot of speculation around. With recently the Chinese government delisting, the American government delisting Chinese companies on their real estate. No, I think we should not forget that real estate building as such is a very illiquid asset. Apart from bare lands, apart from speculations that you have made and opportunity that you have taken, selling a bare land is much more easier than you would be selling a commercial building, for example. So I would not see, if we just come and say that yes, real estate can't change hands, but the real estate market would have collapsed. There are properties that you can sell easily, but there are properties that you can't. So what is happening is that with an oversupply on the market, investors, real estate buyers would be very more cautious. So they would analyze. They would be thinking, so what would be the opportunity? Either I'm buying as an investment or buying for personal use. So can it change hands easily? Yes, it depends on the size of the investment. And there is one thing which I should mention here, is that the maintenance of a building, and I will take a concrete example which probably will prove me right. the maintenance of a building plays a crucial role for its transaction, for it to be readily available for sale, for it to have a high demand. You should not forget that in the years end 1990, 2000, all those buildings now are accommodating commercial banks like NPCB, that is Mobank, Shibani Finance, BCP Bank. That corner of Place d'Orme used to be a ruin. Why was it a ruin? Because the landlords of those buildings did not have enough of rental to maintain the building. And it is in that specific option that the Landlords and Tenant Act was amended in the year 2003-2004 to allow landlords to increase the rental over a period of 10 years. I think it's still going on because they have given an extension to that. But the rental has moved from 10-15 rupees per square foot to 100 rupees per square foot. Those in the banks attending now knows exactly what I'm saying and what is the rental, for example, being paid at Place d'Orme. So if you don't maintain your building, don't think that tomorrow morning when you wake up, you say, okay, my building is worth 10 million rupees or 20 million rupees. So there were a lot of factors that determines how you can sell your property and how fast can you sell these properties.
Okay, thank you, Kantish. Just if you can rush those two last factors, just so we can touch everything. Probably the thing that is believed by most of the Mauritians is buying is always better than renting. And I don't know, that's a funny concept for me because people don't really understand that buying means taking debt, and renting is you have advantages with renting that they don't necessarily consider when considering properties. Kantish, is buying always better than renting?
No, again, there are choices. You see, property buyers all over the world have an emotional connection with the real estate that they purchase. I'll take an example. Let's say my grandparents lives in the south in Chemin-Grenier, and that I want to buy a house near that. For me, it's more of an emotional investment than a proper investment as such. I don't think that buying is better than renting. Renting is better than buying. We should take a concrete example. Let's say I have to stay in a specific region, let's say for 10 years. And when I make my budget, if I take a loan, buy a ready-made house, or buy a plot of land and build a house, let's say my repayment is around 50,000 rupees per month. When you buy something, you always buy something which is functional to you. You don't buy something which is functional to someone else. For example, an handicapped person would not be staying on the first floor. They would be staying on the ground floor. So I strongly believe that if we have the opportunity to rent, because for me that property is for specific reason, and while renting I'm paying, let's say, 25,000 rupees. So why should I spend 25,000 rupees more? I would have saved 25,000 rupees. But when we looked at it from an investment perspective, yes, buying is a good option when you speculate. I will take the example of what is happening in the south. Over the past 2 decades, the majority of developments that has taken place around Mauritius has been in the center, let's say Eden and Port-Louis, has been on the west coast, has been on the north coast, has been on the east coast. And the south coast, I'm not saying because I come from south, I said I don't fancy any region, it's just an argumentation. You would note that lately there has been plenty of developments in the south, starting from Riambel, going to Le Chaland, with a new hotel that has been built by the Karunji Group, with the number of residential morcellement that has been put on sale by Omnicane and other developers near the region of Blue Bay, etc. So technically speaking, I think we should not forget that buying should be something which is analyzed based on your investment requirements. Renting should be based on your operational requirements. Post-COVID-19, why should I rent an office where 50% of my staff will be working from home? So these are options which we should consider, which people is analyzing, which people knows already. So I don't personally agree with the statement that buying is better than renting or vice versa.
Okay, thank you, Gantish. I totally agree with you on this point. I think the way people see buying a property is like, I'll buy a property at 1 million today, and in 20 years it will be worth 2 to 3 million. And that's the only thing that they consider, and they don't really consider the interest that they are paying all this time, the inflation rate and other costs that they repairs and maintenance. It's very costly, and all of those costs. And at the end of the day, sometimes buying definitely is not worth the investment that you actually was looking for. The last myth that we're touching, and I think this is the big myth when it comes to real estate, is that land and building prices always go up. So you will talk to anyone. We have a few bankers here also, and we found that also coming from banks. My land prices is supposed to always increase. My building price is supposed to always increase. And one of the big reasons I think we believe that is we haven't had not necessarily the chance, but we haven't lived the subprime crisis where this was found to be totally wrong. So Kentish, is land and building prices something that always goes up?
No, I don't agree with this also. Land prices goes up when there is a lot of demand. And who creates this demand? We create this demand. It's the law of demand and supply that dictates the price of the property. If you take the example of, I did explain that probably in one of the other webinars we did. In the year 2000, when Medin Sugar State started doing the very first Moselle in Saint-Jacques, the price was around 4,500 rupees per toise. And today, the price is 32,000 rupees per toise. A huge increase. But will that keep on going? I would say no. Why no? Because there are other options. I'll explain. Let's put it this way, that you want to buy a plot of land because you want to be near the beach. Why should you spend 32,000 rupees per toise, whereby you can purchase something just 10 minutes away at 15,000, 16,000 rupees per toise? So I believe that land prices does not necessarily go up. If there are people that has been doing plenty of speculations over the years, in Upper Plain Williams, you name it, with what is happening now, with regards to uncertainties, with regards to people that would be forced to probably sell their property because they got to pay debts, people that would be forced to sell because they know that the price has stabilized. So I don't think the rate of increase that has happened over the past decade would be the same in the next 2-3 years. But with regards to building, you should not forget one thing. We as property professionals, we as valuers, we attach enormous importance on the CPI, that is the construction price index. The cost of bricks and mortar remains the same for any building you build. But depending on the finishes that you do, this will vary. In a moment of uncertainty as we are now, there is a probability, because there is a lack of raw materials in terms of finishes on the market, that price may go up temporarily. But this will have to be managed. This will be resolved sooner or later. We should not forget that, you see, when people were bringing 200, 300 containers from China, when you work out the freight, 300 containers on a ship to Mauritius, per container, it will cost you less. That's the freight issue. But if you're bringing the same ship, they'll spend the same amount on fuel. They'll spend the same amount on their logistic. Obviously, the rate per container would increase. So that would be temporary. So building prices would definitely have an impact on assessment. But now, very often we see these situations. From the outside, when you look at a building, it looks like a wing, and when you go inside, it's like a palace. So I think there should be that individual type of assessment to be able to give the proper values. So when we say that land prices always go up, not necessarily true. And when you say that building prices always go up, not necessarily true. In the present context, where rental yield will be decreasing, would you think if I get, let's say, I have 2% return on my investment in investing in a commercial property, and if I go in a probably high risk investment and I have 5%, I would not make that choice of having 2%. So it is not true to say that. It's a myth, and it will remain a myth.
Okay, thank you, Kentish. We are running a little bit short on time, so we can just rush a little bit into the other sections. So the next question, the big question that we have is the performance of different forms of real estate investments. Donc, juste pour donner un aperçu de c'est quoi vraiment un real estate investment. Un real estate investment, c'est un bien immobilier, pas nécessairement tangible, okay, qu'on achète pour faire un income, to generate an income, to make a profit out of it. Donc, nous avons nos maisons traditionnelles, nos appartements, les duplex, à Eben, on peut voir beaucoup les bâtiments commerciaux, les office space surtout. Nous avons aussi nos industrial buildings et aussi nos retail comme Bagatelle, nos petits shops qu'on voit à travers Maurice. Et on a aussi le intangible asset, les différentes formes de intangible asset. L'une de ces formes, c'est le REIT, le Real Estate Investment Trust, où justement, c'est des compagnies qui investissent dans le real estate, qui louent les investissements qu'ils ont fait. Et aussi, à ce moment-là, vous pouvez acheter des shares dans la compagnie pour faire un profit, pour faire un income dessus. Kentish, when we talk about performance of the different form of real estate investment, what are the factors that we have to consider when looking at real estate investments, and what changes can we expect to see in the future?
I think we should start by understanding the forms of real estate itself. It could be in two types. First, it can be like a purchase of a tangible asset. You see it, you touch it, you buy a house, you buy a plot of land. And it can be in form of shares, like you mentioned it correctly, great. Investing in property funds. These are indirect investment in property, though you're investing in property. It's not tangible as you buy a house. The common ways investors resort to measure performance is normally property indices. And we had a chat on that the other day, but in Mauritius, we have all the ingredients to make a property index. For what reason this is not happening, I won't comment on that now, and I hope it comes. So what I think we need to just a brief of what is an index, indices, for example. Real estate indices provide a somewhat reliable way to measure the growth that has come in an investor's way. And real estate indices use the property index of a given year as being 100. So these prices are then assessed. You should not forget that it's a very dynamic process. Dynamic in the sense that you have regular transcriptions, you have regular sales, and these transcriptions and sales defining how these properties are being increased or decreased, you would make adjustments to your index. And these index will be a guide for you to measure your performance. So let's say in year one, the property price index was 110 points. And in the two, based on analysis that you do, you see that it's 108. It gives you a direct, immediate views of how your investment is performing. The second way we resort to measure performance is through valuations. So we do valuation reports. We should not forget one important thing is that, and this I'm mentioning that, I mention that regularly, I'm saying it again, when you read a valuation report, for God's sake, don't just go on the last page and just read the value. Oh, my client has come to see me. He has made an application of 10 million rupees as a loan, and the valuer has assigned a value of 15 million. So the guy is fine. You can give him his loan. There is a report that goes in details. What are the risks attached to these properties? That's why our report, I'm not here to be defending prime pillars' way of doing things. I know we are unique. We are not blowing our trumpet. That's a truth. That's a fact. We spend time. Our report is 20, 30 pages. We need to analyze each bit one by one to know why we give so much time in assessing those values. So valuation would be another possibilities of measuring your performance. And having said so, Cedric, it would be important at this stage for you to just give a quick brief that when we're still in confinement, but we're working now with whatever permit we have. That's another debate. During the confinement, we have been very, very aggressive in terms of communication to our clients, in terms of updates that we have been sharing with them. And two of these updates comes from RICS and IBSC. If you could probably just give a quick brief so that those who have not received or who's got the note and haven't paid attention yet, that they spend some time on it. Because since we resumed work last week, our reports has changed, taking into consideration those uncertainties.
Okay, thank you, Kentish. Yes, the IBSC and the RICS, the royal body that gives us our chartership and right to operate as valuers, talk a lot about Covid-19. Covid-19 c'est devenu quelque chose de tellement d'important dans le monde et que les effets de Covid, c'est tellement grave. Beaucoup de personnes, que même la RICS ou le IBSC vous dit carrément, vous devez faire extrêmement attention sur les évaluations. Et en tant qu'évaluateur, je pense que c'est de nous pousser à faire comprendre aux clients que nous sommes en train de vivre une situation jamais vue. Les conditions du marché même ne seront plus pareilles comme ce que ça a été pendant les dernières années et que la façon de vivre qu'on a tellement qu'on a appris à vivre d'une certaine façon pendant tellement de temps que ça va changer. Et ce changement-là aura des effets sur pas mal de choses, incluant spécifiquement le real estate market en général. Donc, la ICS, effectivement, parle de ce uncertainty et je pense que c'est quelque chose que beaucoup de personnes doivent comprendre. On a tellement de uncertainty, on parle beaucoup de ce qui va se passer sans vraiment avoir des chiffres exacts pour pouvoir dire oui, on s'attend vraiment à voir ça arriver, on s'attend à voir ça arriver. On parle du new normal, on ne sait pas c'est quoi le new normal, on ne sait pas qu'est-ce qui va changer, mais c'est principalement de laisser savoir aux gens que on s'attend à avoir des changements. Il y aura des gros changements qui vont venir dans le futur et aussi de dire et de raise the awareness quand on parle de real estate et de l'évaluation en général. Kentish, tu as d'autres points dessus là, toi?
I have one more, not one, various points that I need to raise. J'ai parlé de indices, j'ai parlé d'évaluation. Maintenant, c'est important de comprendre que comparable properties also peuvent être utilisées to measure performance. Il ne faut pas oublier que this is last but not least, the most common way to derive the value of a given property, that is to look at the value of comparable properties. Il ne faut pas oublier que cette méthodologie, c'est gratuit ça. Tu n'as qu'à faire des recherches au niveau du registrar et tu vas avoir les prix des comparables. Mais allons dire maintenant, tu vas au registrar et tu vois que voilà, à 4 bonnes, j'ai trouvé un terrain qui a été vendu à, allons dire, 20 000 roupies la toise, parce que dans la descriptif, dans la désignation, c'est écrit une portion de terrain située dans le quartier de Plaine-Villiers, lieu dit 4 bonnes. OK, c'est 20 000. Et tu vois, un autre title deed qui a été transcrit, il te dit toujours lieu dit 4 bonnes, avec tout le respect que je dois avec les gens qui habitent là-bas, et que ça se trouve à, je ne sais pas moi, Trèfle aux îles, Trèfle 4 bonnes. Donc, le prix portoise à Trèfle 4 bonnes ne peut pas être comparé avec le prix portoise dans une autre région de 4 bonnes, which is primary. So, using comparative evidence to compare properties as a performance, you should be able to compare like with like. Now, performance can also be measured through equity growth from appreciation, ce qu'on appelle dans le jargon, basically, capital appreciation. L'autre possibilité, c'est equity growth from your cash flow. Il ne faut pas oublier que there are investors buying for cash flow and not necessarily for capital appreciation. I have purchased a property on the Royal Road in Cactobone. I don't know who is operating, Pizza Hut is operating, a hairdresser is operating, but I'm receiving a decent rental. So for me, the value of the property is not that important rather than the income I'm deriving from it. So the equity growth, not to forget one important thing. When you make a lease agreement with your tenant, there is a clause that my yearly rental would be increased by, let's say, 3% or CPI, whichever is the highest. So every year you have an increase. And this increase technically should not bring rental yield compression, but if it does, you should reconsider your investment. So this is another aspect. Another important thing is the operating ratios. Property investment is a long-term game. You don't buy a property because you don't like you go to the casino and you bet 1,000 rupees to get I don't know how much. It's a long-term game. So over a period of time, both the positive cash flows as well as the operating expenses of holding on to that property both change. It's dynamic. That's what I mentioned initially. If your property is not maintained well, it becomes old, wear and tear. Now, if there is wear and tear and you're spending 20,000 rupees on that unit per month because the ceiling is leaking, the door is not closing, having problems with electricity and whatnot, and your rental is decreasing, why should we keep that property? So analyzing that operating expenses as a ratio defines the performance.
Okay.
Before I close this chapter, probably it's important to know that we have basically 3 types of investors. There is what we call the speculators, which we see regularly, which will be less and less, I guess, in the coming days, in a certain way, but more and more for those who got that first to purchase. You got the end users because I buy because I use it myself. Now, becoming the end users, I will try to buy properties which is functional to me, not functional to others. And there is what we call the long-term investors. So you may proceed with the other part of the presentation.
Okay. Merci, Kentish. Je pense, vu le temps, il nous reste que 7 minutes, je pense, à peu près pour finir le reste. On peut prendre Money Supply si c'est mieux pendant les questions. À ce moment-là, ça va nous laisser un peu plus de temps. Okay? C'est quelque chose de vraiment intéressant. À ce moment-là, on peut juste prendre ça pendant les questions. Le troisième point qu'on avait justement à parler dessus, c'est Infrastructure as a Real Estate Investment. Donc, comme on sait, l'infrastructure, c'est quelque chose d'extrêmement important dans toute économie, okay? Peu importe où on est situé. The more infrastructure you have, the better your economy, the more developed you are. So highways are extremely important. In Mauritius, we have the metro that's coming, that already came for a few regions, and then which will extend eventually. We also have the highway, for example, in Phoenix, that will be a big development that is coming up. We know that in the long term, investing in infrastructure is the way to go. It is the right thing to do. But now that we are living with COVID, Kentish, according to you, in terms of short term and long term, is infrastructure the best thing to do right now? Is that where we should invest, or maybe we should focus on other things for the moment?
Okay. We should not forget the basic behind public infrastructures. Public infrastructures are important for the socio-economic development of any country. But what is more important is, what about the payback? It's good to know that when you invest on something, public infrastructures, you would need at a point in time to make it functional, to make it reliable, and so that you pay back whatever you've spent on it. My humble opinion, our vision of a new Mauritius, we are property professionals. I think with the number of problems that we would be facing shortly, it would be important to first complete all works which they have already started, which have been, because otherwise it would be an eyesore, and probably temporarily postpone other developments, but concentrating on the maintenance of the existing infrastructures. Now, there's something that goes along infrastructural development in a country. You should not forget that when we did the link road from Jumbo to Bosons, it used to be sugarcane fields. What have we seen? That there has been plenty of private promoters selling the plot of land, converting the land from agricultural to residential. So it gives opportunities. So infrastructure, investment in infrastructure helps also in developing other types of products. But there is a big question about, people saying, the metro line is passing very near my house, so the value of my building has gone up. This is not true. You wake up in the morning, you bloody hear noise, and you go to sleep also, you hear the same bloody noise. So not true to say that when there are infrastructures near where you are, your property will get an appreciation. It will have an effect of depreciation as well. But where there are stations, let's put it this way, at the metro station at Robassa, have you seen how much the rate per square foot is now for the commercial properties? So it brings a lot of inconveniences as well as a lot of inconveniences. So we should be able to analyze things. So don't think that because the metro line is passing near my house, so the value of my house, the next day I wake up, it used to be 2 million, now it's 20 million. Wrong analysis.
Thank you, Kentish. Yes, this is very interesting. You just raised the point of construction that already started needs to be completed. I think, yes, this is a big question that that government will have to answer, because if you don't complete those projects, the cost that will be associated with that will be quite significant. But also, what do you do in that moment? I think this is a very big question that will need to be answered through what you mentioned, the payback period of those investments, also because of what we are living, because of COVID and what's happening to Mauritius and the world in general. So if we move to our last section, which is changes in primary locations for real estate investment, just for everyone, before we move into that, we'll just extend maybe the session by 5 to 10 minutes, just for us to be able to tackle this question. And then we can move on to questions where we will be able to discuss a little bit more about questions that you might have and or things that you might want to raise during the webinar. So Kentish, we have seen changes over the years about, for example, one of the big example of changes that occurred was the movement, the decentralization from Port-Risk to Eben, because people wanted a better infrastructure, they wanted a better place to work, and Port-Risk was not necessarily offering all of those facilities, parking facilities and all of that. So we have seen changes occurs in Mauritius, and we are also expecting to see changes, knowing that we will have a new normal, knowing that a lot of changes will occur in the future in the way we interact with things, in the way we do things. Can we expect to see changes in primary locations in real estate, Kentish?
We should not forget that based on our experience and the way we analyze figures, transcriptions, and so on, we have seen over the years secondary locations turning out to be primary locations. I'll take the example of Goodlands. Goodlands used to be a secondary location, but Goodland is a primary location now. You go there at every time of the day, there is a traffic. So what has happened is that if you want to go even to commute from Goodlands to Grand Bay, it will take you probably 10 minutes because there are infrastructural works. So whether there would be changes from primary locations to secondary locations, I think there is a mixed sentiment. We should not forget that what has happened in Mauritius with regards to CBDs, that is central business districts, we used to have just Port-Louis as our CBD. Now we have Eben as our CBD, one of the rare countries in Africa where we have two CBDs. So it's true, at a point in time, people were moving away from Port-Louis to Eben because we need to be Eben. This has created empty spaces, which they are still finding it hard to fill. Now with that new normal where people are working from home, where probably big entrepreneurs that used to have to rent big office space would reduce their size, we would need to have 21st century thoughts, 21st century measures, so that we try to find alternatives to keep those buildings fully occupied. And this is a hard work. This is the challenge of tomorrow. This is the challenge of property professionals. We need to seriously understand why people shift and what will happen post-COVID-19. We would experiment that shift. We would experiment tenant turnover. We would experiment a rate of low occupancy in building, and that's why I use this word 21st century solutions, and 21st century solutions are found by people who believe, by people who understand property, and not amateurs.
Thank you, Kentish. Yes, I totally join you on that. I think we will need 21st century approaches, reasonings to see where we will be moving, because with COVID, definitely we should see changes that we shouldn't be able to expect, firstly, but also major changes in our way of living. And I totally join you on the fact that maybe we'll see secondary locations becoming primary locations, and maybe primary locations losing what made it a primary location to begin with, which is people flowing into those areas. So I think that's all for us. We'll move to questions. Kentish, Christian, ce que je propose, c'est on prend quelques questions au début et après on bouge peut-être sur money supply and real estate, que je pense c'est quelque chose d'assez intéressant.
Ok, très bien.
Volontiers.